So before we get started, I just wanted to mention a few things about the franchise and its musical sound that we sort of uncovered over the process of that first year. Some of those core things were that sense of hope, and was that somehow present in the heart of the music. As well as that sense of heroism. Something in it that sort of inherently made you want to sit up taller in your seat. And those were things that, regardless of what the piece of music was for, whether in-game or a piece of cinematics or what map it was from, sort of listening at a piece of music in its essence, trying to hear if somewhere in it was a sense of hope or heroism, could help me figure out if it was right for the franchise.
The challenge was, there's nothing there and you have to make something out of nothing, and it has to fit the exact parameters of, the timing of the scene, and to hit at just the right moment and have just the right sound.
Yeah, we're so lucky that Blizzard is such a collaborative environment. The music team is very much considered integral to our game development, and it's something that I think benefits the game, having a range of compositional voices, and it's something that we've tried to do across all the media types that we have. Overwatch isn't simply a video game, it's a cinematic animated series, it's an esport. There's a lot of promotional content that goes out there, and you'll often find that internally it often gets sprinkled around all of the type of content we create. Overwatch League is based on our core Overwatch themes. Our cinematics often pull inspiration from our map music or some of the very original theme exploration that was done well before I even started at Blizzard. I think it goes back to a core idea that when music leaves our department and the public see it, we want it to be as strong as it can possibly be.
One of the really exciting things about theme is that that's the place in music where you say something. I think of theme as kind of like a thesis statement where you're trying to create the big idea, and everything is derivative of that big idea. If you get that right, then everything else writes itself.
It was very exciting and a little daunting, but I remember seeing the artwork and just instantly getting ideas in my head. But ultimately, it comes down to when you're working on a cinematic, like I had worked on the announcement trailer. Sam had written this beautiful fanfare that Chris Velasco had arranged in the intro, as well as the moment where you see the gauntlet. So you had this very hopeful fanfare already established, but we needed something to be kind of the heroic action theme that happens a couple times in the cinematic, but the climax of that is when the gauntlet punches Widowmaker. And we ended up calling that Hero B for a while, but eventually became the victory theme, the play of the game theme. And it's something that I struggled with for quite a bit. I did multiple versions of it, and it wasn't quite there. And the way it always works is, it's obviously the last thing you come up with. But when it finally clicked and locked into place, there's just something, I just remember feeling this sense of, you know, that's it. And I think that's going to be the one. Something felt very special, felt like we were onto something.
A real highlight for me was the Bastion cinematic, and it was not easy. Ben Dye and Jeff Chamberlain helmed that project, and they were very, very particular about how that felt. And I think that there was a very clear vision in their minds about what that should be. And it was a really interesting thing to see the backstory of a character that's a monster, and to find out that there was a level of innocence. That there was, that Bastion became the way he became because of what he experienced. Before that, he was an innocent. He was naive. He had feelings. And I love how that is portrayed through that cinematic. But the process of getting to that was a grueling one, and it was the product of many iterations. And to the credit of Ben and Jeff, they just never ever gave up. They didn't give up. Those are hard asks after someone's done something a number of times. You realize what you're asking people, and they didn't flinch at all, and nor did they give up on me, which is a really key issue. That's something that is unique to Blizzard. You feel empowered by that. You really do get a sense that this is something that is cared deeply about, and there's a real vision for it, and they just won't settle. The other thing is that one of the important things about being a producer and director is just creating a sense of taste. And communicating what that is to those who are going to contribute to this creative process. I think that a personal investment, when you're on a creative team, a personal investment in story and character, that's everything. And when we're creating, we're trying to get to the essence of whatever that character is. We need to know their backstory. We need to know the old cliche in film, what's my motivation? That's a real thing. And getting a sense of that and expressing it authentically with your creative work, that means everything. And I think that's the very reason why people feel what they feel. And if I don't feel it, you won't feel it. But I do have a very deep connection to that world. It's as real to me as walking outside and seeing the tangible world. There's not anything to me that's any less real or tangible about the Overwatch world than when I go out and experience life.
I remember when I first saw the Dragon short in its rough form, which is a rough animatic and it wasn't the final animation. There's temp music and temp dialogue and everything. I remember just feeling this sense of really emotional connection to it, even in that form. Something about the story, something about just the motivation behind it really resonated. And I still get choked up at the end of it, watching it, not because of my music, but because of the emotional connection I had to it when I was creating the music. And I think that's a testament to the writers and to the game developers and everyone that brought the cinematic to life. And to get to be a part of that, and to get to be a part of helping tell these stories and expanding the cinematic universe outside the game is an incredible gift. I'm very grateful for that.
When it came to announcing Overwatch 2 in November 2019, all of us in this room and other composers had contributed so much to finding the right sound for both 0 Hour and the gameplay trailer. And to sit in that room, to have that opportunity to do that, it was amazing. And to feel the energy in the room as we witnessed Overwatch probably at what we've seen the lowest of lows. But then to come back and have all the heroes show up one by one. And the crowd just erupting and the room vibrating as, their favorite hero showed up in Paris to save the day. It was truly memorable, and it just reminded me how much this franchise resonates with people, how important it is to them, and how much of an honor it is for us to do what we do every day. Our location music is so interesting and such a unique challenge for Overwatch. As the universe has grown over the years, we've seen so many locations being added to the game. For example, Busan, we will source Korean percussion and Korean woodwinds and use those. And each one presents a new unique challenge. We have a core set of values when it comes to creating this location music. Firstly, we want to honor the location and region that we're writing the music for if it's based in the real world, which in most cases it is. But we also want to put it through the lens of what would this sound like in Overwatch. This is a futuristic depiction of Earth that we are yet to experience. We haven't familiarized ourselves with it. We don't live there. So how do we blend the two? And that fusion is always super interesting to experiment with. We will not cut corners at all, to the extent that in many cases we've actually worked with our regional teams. In the same way that our sound designers go and hire teams who will record Foley sounds, we will do the same for music. And I think that we are very conscious that the fans are very invested in this franchise. They love the game, they love the universe. We have fans that might not even play the game, but are just enamored with the characters and will dress up in cosplay, come to BlizzCon, consume the cinematics like nothing else. And, it's a testament to how much Overwatch has just touched people and how people have resonated with it so deeply over the years. That said, when we are creating the music, or me personally, it's all about the content we're making. We're trying to elevate what's already there. We're trying to build upon the foundations of what other departments may have done with a cinematic or a level in the game or a new character. And so long as we serve that purpose, we think that people will resonate with it how we resonate with it internally at Blizzard.
You have to have an emotional connection to the work to be able to convey a true emotional connection, to the viewer. But on the other side of it, do we think about the millions of people that are going to see it, are going to watch the cinematic or are going to play the game, or all the people that are going to be at BlizzCon? Do we let that pressure get to us? Because there's obviously a pressure to make the best thing you can make, and as a creative person, how do you deal with it? How do you sit down and create something knowing how much, how many people will see it, how much scrutiny there will be over it, how much, you want it to be the best it can be, but ultimately you have to tune that out and just focus on what's right in front of you, and focus on the characters and focus on making the best thing you can be. And whether or not it's a hit, or whether or not, people love it or don't love it, you did your best, you gave it your all, and that's all you can really focus on.
Yeah, I think the primary function of music is to serve the story that's being told, develop the world, create something that helps grow whatever we're making into something much more larger.
It can be extremely difficult to really pour your heart and soul into something and come up with an idea that you work so hard at, and to present it to somebody else, to be judged, and to be ultimately have them decide whether or not it works in the project. But one of the best things about Blizzard is that no matter how many times we have to, start from scratch or keep trying, ultimately they're after the best possible vision of the product. As long as you're after something that is going to be worth it in the end, it gets you up every morning, and it makes it worth all of it. I look back now, I've been, a professional composer for 23 years now. I look back and I just see, all these projects that I finished that I forget, I guess, that at the time these were these giant mountains that I had to climb. But as long as you have something that's driving you to get to the other side, whether it's just pure stubbornness, and in my case probably, it keeps you going.
Overwatch was so exciting because, we keep hearing this word hopeful. Well, it's really easy to be cool if you're brooding and dark, but it's really, really hard to be cool when it's hopeful and bright. And Overwatch has managed to do that.